Beneath Kentucky's rolling hills and endless cave systems lie secrets science still can't explain. Ancient earthworks older than history itself. Carvings and structures that don't fit the timeline we've been taught. Hidden clues suggesting a forgotten past. In this video, we're uncovering the unsolved ancient mysteries of Kentucky. Evidence so strange it could rewrite what we think we know about human civilization. Let's begin. But not all ancient mysteries are found in towering temples or on forgotten maps. Some are hidden deep underground, in the silent, perpetual darkness of the earth itself. And one of the most perplexing of these subterranean enigmas lies right here, in the heart of Kentucky. Mammoth Cave is a place of superlatives. It's the longest known cave system in the entire world, a sprawling, labyrinthine network of tunnels and chambers that stretches for over 400 miles. Today, it's a national park, a place where tourists walk on well-lit paths, marveling at the immense natural formations. But if you were to venture off those paths to crawl into the tighter, more remote passages where the modern electric lights don't reach, you would find evidence of a much older visitor. Evidence that raises a chilling and unanswered question. Why would ancient people delve miles into this absolute darkness, braving unimaginable peril, to dig for a specific mineral 4,000 years ago? The discovery was made deep within the cave, in passages known today as the Salts Cave and Mammoth Cave systems. Archaeologists found piles of debris where someone had clearly been digging. They found burnt reed torches, their ends charred from use, discarded on the dusty floor. They even found fragments of gourds, hollowed out to carry water or food. And most importantly, they found the preserved bodies of some of these ancient explorers. Their remains, mummified by the cave's constant, dry atmosphere, were found exactly where they had fallen, victims of rockfalls or starvation after becoming lost in the impossible blackness. Radiocarbon dating revealed a startling truth. These miners were at work around 2,000 years before the Common Era. That's 1,000 years before the founding of ancient Rome. This was not a casual trip. The scale of their operation was immense. They weren't just popping into the entrance. These miners journeyed for miles, navigating complex, twisting tunnels that required crawling through narrow, cramped spaces. All of this was done with only the flickering, unreliable light of a cane torch. The sheer physical and psychological courage this would have required is almost beyond comprehension. The cave is utterly lightless, a place where silence is so complete it feels heavy. One wrong turn, one slipped foot, and you would be lost forever, your torch eventually sputtering out, leaving you in a tomb of absolute black. So what could possibly have been valuable enough to justify such an immense risk? The material they were digging for was not gold, not silver, not any precious metal we would immediately recognize. They were mining for sulfate minerals, specifically mirabilite and gypsum. These are soft, crystalline substances. To a modern eye, they seem worthless. So why were they so important to these prehistoric people? This is the core of the mystery. The mainstream theory is that these minerals were prized for their ceremonial or medicinal properties. Gypsum, when processed, is a white powder. It's possible it was used as body paint for important rituals or as a base for pigments. Some suggest it could have been used as a dietary supplement or a purgative, a substance to cleanse the body. But here, where the mystery deepens. If this was a common practice, why is Mammoth Cave the only place we see evidence of such deep, dangerous, and large-scale mining for these specific minerals? Why go to such extreme lengths for something that seems to have alternatives? This has led to other, more speculative theories. Perhaps the minerals were not for use at all, but the act of retrieving them was the point. Maybe the journey itself was a rite of passage, a test of courage and endurance for young men or spiritual initiates. Venturing into the underworld and returning with a piece of it could have held profound spiritual significance. The cave, to them, might not have been just a hole in the ground. It could have been a portal to the spirit world, a place where one could commune with ancestors or powerful forces. The minerals brought back would then be sacred relics, charged with the power of that otherworldly journey. There's also a hauntingly practical possibility. What if we have simply lost the knowledge of what these minerals were truly for? What if 4,000 years ago, these sulfate minerals were a critical component for something essential to their society, a preservative for food, a crucial ingredient in a long-forgotten technology, or a catalyst for a chemical process we no longer understand? The fact that we can't see their value today doesn't mean they were without it. It might just mean that the thread of that knowledge has been severed by time. The Mammoth Cave miners leave us with a profound silence. Their bodies remain, but their motives are buried with them. They challenge our assumption that ancient people were simple or incapable of complex, organized, and terrifyingly dangerous undertakings. They ventured into the abyss not for survival, not for shelter, but for something else. Something they deemed so valuable that they were willing to face the deepest fears of humanity: darkness, confinement, and being lost forever. What that something was remains one of Kentucky's oldest and most eerie unsolved mysteries. From the profound darkness of the world's largest cave, we journey to the sun-dappled banks of a secluded river, where another mystery is etched not in the earth, but onto it. This enigma isn't about what was taken, but what was left behind. A message, carved in stone, waiting centuries for a reader who never came. In the dense, forested hills of Clay County, Kentucky, the Red Bird River flows past a large sandstone cliff. And on this cliff face is a collection of intricate, mysterious symbols known as the Red Bird River Petroglyphs. Unlike the cave mining operation, this mystery is out in the open for anyone to see. But being able to see it doesn't mean we can understand it. These carvings are a locked door to the past, and we have lost the key. The petroglyphs are a stunning array of images. There are human-like figures with strange, radiating headdresses. There are serpents, birds, and four-legged animals. There are geometric patterns, circles with dots in the center, spirals and grids of lines that look almost like primitive calendars or maps. The styles are varied, suggesting they might not have all been carved by the same hand or even from the same time period. They tell a story, or perhaps many stories. But the language of that story is one we can no longer read. So who carved them and when? The most common attribution is to the Native American cultures that have inhabited the region for thousands of years, likely the Cherokee or their ancestors. The area around the Red Bird River was a known hunting ground and travel route. The carvings could be trail markers, territorial boundaries, or records of successful hunts. The human figures with elaborate headdresses could represent important chiefs or shamans. The serpents might be symbols of powerful spirits or deities. In this interpretation, the cliff face is a sacred storybook, a record of myth and history. But this explanation doesn't satisfy everyone. Some of the symbols are unsettlingly familiar, yet eerily out of place. Certain researchers have pointed to a figure that looks like a sun cross, a symbol found in European cultures. Others see what appears to be a sailing ship, an image that should have no business on a cliff in pre-Columbian Kentucky. This has sparked a much more controversial theory, that the petroglyphs are not entirely of Native American origin. Could they be evidence of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact? The idea is that visitors from across the Atlantic, perhaps Welsh explorers led by the Prince Madoc of legend, or even earlier Phoenician sailors, could have made their way inland and left their mark. According to this theory, the petroglyphs are a fusion of styles, a meeting of worlds recorded in stone. It's a tantalizing idea, but one that mainstream archaeology heavily disputes due to a lack of any other corroborating evidence in the region. The ship image could easily be a stylized snake or a trick of erosion and imagination. Perhaps the most fascinating and frustrating possibility is that the carvings represent a completely lost language or symbolic system from a culture that has vanished without a trace. Kentucky's history is deep, and many cultures rose and fell long before the tribes we know today established themselves. What if the Red Bird petroglyphs are the last remnant of one of these lost peoples? A final monument that says, "We were here, but tells us nothing more. The true meaning of the symbols might be something we can no access. Without a cultural Rosetta Stone to translate them, we are left with guesswork. Were they astronomical charts, marking the solstices and equinoxes for agricultural or ceremonial purposes? The spirals and circles could support this. Were they a map of the river system itself, with the wavy lines representing water and the circles representing important campsites? Were they a warning, marking a sacred burial ground or a place of danger? The cliff itself offers no answers, only more questions. The soft sandstone is susceptible to erosion, and some carvings are fatting, their details slowly being washed away by rain and time. The message is literally disappearing before we can learn to read it. The Red Bird River petroglyphs stand as a silent monument to the fragility of knowledge. They are a powerful reminder that entire histories, complex belief systems, and whole languages can vanish, leaving behind only cryptic clues on a secluded cliffside, challenging us to unravel a story we may never fully understand. But not all ancient mysteries are built from stone or hidden in deep caves. Some are constructed from the remnants of daily life, rising from the earth as massive, silent mounds that hold secrets of a forgotten world. And in the Green River valleys of western Kentucky, one such mound poses a question that has puzzled archaeologists for over a century. Why did a prehistoric culture bury thousands of their dead in a mountain of discarded shells, only to then vanish completely from history? This is the Enigma of Indian Knoll. Located near the Green River in Ohio County, Kentucky, Indian Knoll is not a natural hill. It is a massive shell midden, an ancient landfill created over generations by a people known as the archaic hunter-gatherers. This enormous mound, covering nearly 2 acres and reaching depths of over 8 feet, is composed primarily of mussel shells, animal bones, and other refuse. For centuries, this community feasted on the abundant resources of the river, discarding the shells and creating a landscape that would eventually become their sacred resting place. But it's what lies within this shell heap that transforms it from a simple garbage dump into one of Kentucky's most profound archaeological mysteries. The true scale of Indian Knoll was revealed through excavations that began in the early 20th century. Archaeologists like Clarence Bloomfield Moore and later William Snyder Webb, working during the Great Depression, made a staggering discovery. Buried within the layers of shell and earth were not just tools and artifacts, but people. The remains of over 1,200 individuals were unearthed, making it one of the largest and most significant archaic burial sites ever discovered in North America. These weren't mass graves, but individual burials, each telling a silent story. Men, women, and children were carefully placed in shallow graves scooped out of the shell midden itself, often curled into a tight, fetal position as if they were sleeping. The way they were buried is only the first layer of the mystery. Many of these individuals were buried with gifts, a practice that reveals a complex social structure we never knew existed so long ago. The graves were not equal. Men were often interred with tools of their trade, exquisitely crafted axes, intricately carved atlatl weights known as banner stones, and fish hooks. Women were buried with mortars and pestles for grinding nuts, and with beautiful ornaments like beads made from shell and bone. This suggests a society with defined social roles and status, a level of organization that defies the old image of simple, egalitarian hunter-gatherers. Some of the materials found were exotic, imported from hundreds of miles away. Shells from the Gulf of Mexico and even copper from the Great Lakes region were discovered, evidence of a vast trade network that connected these ancient Kentuckians to a continent they could never have imagined. But the finds grew even more strange and poignant. Among the human burials, archaeologists discovered the graves of dogs. 21 dog burials were found, 9 of them carefully laid to rest alongside their human companions. These dogs were apparently killed at the time of their owner's death, placed at their feet, by their side, or even on top of them. This suggests dogs were not just pets. They were spiritual guides, protectors, or perhaps sacrificial offerings meant to accompany their owners into the afterlife. The emotional bond we feel with our pets today clearly existed thousands of years ago on the banks of the Green River. Then there are the signs of a darker aspect of life. The skeleton of a young woman was found with a slit throat. Another individual showed clear evidence of having been scalped. Many skeletons were found with projectile points embedded in their chest cavities or nestled among their ribs. Others were found dismembered, with skulls and limbs missing, suggesting trophy-taking or violent warfare. Was Indian Knoll a peaceful community that occasionally faced brutal raids? Or was violence an ingrained part of their culture? The evidence is buried with them. Life at Indian Knoll was harsh. Analysis of the skeletal remains reveals a population that lived short, difficult lives. The average lifespan was a mere 18.5 years, and infant mortality was devastatingly high. They lived in permanent dwellings with hardened clay floors, warmed by hearths used for cooking and heating during the bitter winters. Their diet was rich from the river's bounty, mussels, fish, and waterfowl, and supplemented by nuts like hickory and acorn, which they processed with stones found throughout the midden. They thrived here for over 1,000 years, from around 3000 to 2000 BC, and then they simply vanished. The shell mound stopped growing, the burial ceased, the story ends. Why? What happened to the people of Indian Knoll? Did they overexploit the rich environment that sustained them? Did a shift in the climate or the course of the river force them to move on? Or were they wiped out by conflict, either with each other or with new groups moving into their territory? The answer is lost to time. The shell mound remains, a silent testament to a complex, sophisticated, and ultimately mysterious culture that flourished in ancient Kentucky and then disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only their dead and the shells of their countless meals to tell their story. From the ancient shell mounds of the Green River, we turn to a mystery carved in much heavier stone. This enigma doesn't lie in a remote field, but sits uneasily within the modern landscape of Kentucky's largest city. It's a controversy that pits conventional history against a tantalizing possibility. Are a series of massive, cut stone blocks in Louisville the ruins of a prehistoric structure, or are they simply the discarded remains of a colonial-era quarry? The story begins with the founding of the city itself. Louisville, Kentucky, was named in honor of King Louis XVI of France, whose support was crucial to the American colonists during the Revolutionary War. The city was chartered in 1780 by Virginian soldiers under George Rogers Clark, who established the first settlement near the falls of the Ohio River, a natural barrier that made the location strategically important. The early days were fraught with danger, requiring the construction of sturdy forts like Fort Onshore and the stronger Fort Nelson to protect against attacks. This historical context is crucial because it establishes one side of the debate, that the early American settlers were capable stonemasons who needed vast quantities of stone to build their defensive structures, their homes, and their city. The conventional explanation for the large, cut limestone blocks found in various states of arrangement and disarray around Louisville is that they are the leftover refuse of this early construction boom. According to this view, the blocks are nothing more than quarried stone, perhaps rejected for having flaws or simply abandoned when a project was completed. They are a common sight in historic areas, and most historians see them as colonial-era artifacts, interesting but not mysterious. However, a closer look at some of these stones has sparked a much more intriguing theory. Some of these blocks are truly massive, weighing several tons each. They are often cut with surprising precision, with sharp, clean angles and faces that seem too regular for simple quarry spoils. Their arrangement in certain locations sometimes feels intentional, not random. To some observers, they don't look discarded, they look placed. This has led to a controversial alternative theory, that these stones are not colonial at all, but are far older. Could they be the scattered remnants of a prehistoric megalithic structure? The word megalith comes from the ancient Greek for great stone, and it refers to large stone blocks used by prehistoric peoples to construct monuments or structures, like the famous Stonehenge in England or the dolmens of Western Europe. Proponents of this theory point to the sheer size and weight of the stones, asking how and why early American settlers, with their limited technology, would go through the immense effort of cutting and moving such massive blocks only to then abandon them. They suggest that the stone's placement might align with celestial events or geographical features, a common trait of megalithic sites worldwide. The debate often centers on a specific, well-known stone, the massive statue of King Louis XVI that once stood outside Louisville Metro Hall. This 9-ton marble statue, a gift from Louisville's sister city of Montpellier, France in the 1960s, was damaged during protests in 2020 and now sits in storage. While this statue is definitively colonial-era in origin, though carved in France, its story is oddly symbolic of the larger megalith debate. The city has struggled to decide what to do with this contested monument, with some seeing it as an important historical symbol and others viewing it as a representation of outdated values. This same conflict between traditional history and alternative interpretation surrounds the simpler, older stones scattered elsewhere. So how do we solve this mystery? Archaeology provides tools, but the answers are often complex. Unfortunately, unlike the shell mounds of Indian Knoll, these stone blocks are not found in a pristine, layered archaeological context. They have been moved, reused, and surrounded by centuries of urban development, making it extremely difficult to determine their original purpose or date. The conventional historical record is strong. The need for quarried stone in the building of a new city is a perfectly logical explanation. Yet the possibility remains, nagging and persistent. What if the first American settlers didn't just find a wilderness? What if they found something much older? Could they have stumbled upon the ruins of an ancient, unknown culture and simply used their pre-cut stones as a convenient resource, unknowingly dismantling a Kentucky equivalent of Stonehenge to build their own forts and foundations? It's a compelling thought. If true, it would rewrite the deep history of the region, suggesting a level of prehistoric organization and capability that currently exists only in theory. Without a time machine, the truth about the Louisville Megaliths may never be fully known. They exist in a liminal space between fact and speculation. Are they the colonial-era quarry scraps that mainstream history insists they are? Or are they the last crumbling fragments of a forgotten prehistoric past, a silent testament to a culture that moved massive stones for a purpose we can no longer understand? The blocks themselves refuse to speak, leaving us to wonder if the foundations of the modern city are built upon the ghosts of a much older world. But not all ancient mysteries are about construction. Some are about abandonment. Why would a thriving, sophisticated culture suddenly vanish from the lands they had shaped for centuries, leaving behind only their silent, earthbound monuments? This is the haunting question surrounding the Adena People, a mighty mound-building culture that flourished in the heart of Kentucky, and then, centuries before Europeans ever set foot on the continent, simply walked away from their sacred sites. The Adena culture was a profound force in ancient North America, existing from around 500 BCE to 100 CE, a period known as the early woodland era. They were not a single, unified tribe, but rather a network of related Native American societies connected by a shared burial complex and ceremonial system, centered in modern-day Ohio, but stretching into West Virginia, Indiana, and critically, Kentucky. Their name comes from the Adena Mound on Thomas Worthington's estate in Chillicothe, Ohio, but their legacy is written into the very landscape of the Bluegrass state. The Adena were master builders in an age before the wheel, before metal tools, and before draft animals. They are known as the first of the mound builders. Their most stunning achievements are the massive earthworks that rise from the earth, often in commanding positions overlooking rivers. These were not simple piles of dirt. They were sophisticated structures, built layer by layer over generations using only digging sticks and baskets to move hundreds of thousands of loads of specially selected earth. These mounds served as burial structures, ceremonial sites, and historical markers. The process was deeply ritualistic. A mortuary building would be constructed, used to maintain the dead, and then intentionally burned. The earthwork would be piled immediately atop the ashes, and the process would repeat, slowly creating a prominent sacred hill. In Kentucky, sites like the Big Site in Greenup County, with its concentric circular embankments, stand as testament to their skill and spiritual devotion. The society that built these structures was far more complex than the old image of simple nomadic hunter-gatherers. They lived in small, mobile family groups of 15 to 20 people, moving seasonally to hunt game like deer and elk and to gather nuts and fruits. But they also practiced early forms of gardening, cultivating sunflowers, squash, pumpkins, and goosefoot. They were skilled artists, creating intricate stone tablets stamped with zoomorphic and geometric designs, possibly for body painting or tattooing. Their trade network was vast and sophisticated, exchanging local materials like Kentucky limestone and barite for copper from the Great Lakes, mica from North Carolina, and shells from the Gulf Coast. This proves they were connected to a continent-wide web of exchange and ideas. But perhaps the most fascinating and mysterious aspect of the Adena people was their physical presence. Archaeological evidence describes them as a distinct, strongly built people. Studies of skeletal remains indicate they were predominantly brachycephalic, meaning they had short, broad skulls, with prominent brow ridges, strong jaws, and large, high-vaulted craniums. Many practiced a form of artificial cranial deformation, binding infants' heads to create a distinct, elongated occipital shape, further enhancing these features. This has led to much speculation and controversy, with some researchers in the past noting similarities between Adena skeletal remains and those of the Beaker people of prehistoric Europe, though these theories are highly debated and not part of mainstream archaeology today. Then, around the 1st or 2nd century CE, the Adena culture as a distinct entity fades from the archaeological record in Kentucky. The meticulous mound building ceases. The distinctive pottery styles change. It appears they abandoned their sacred sites. The question is, why? There are several theories for this great exodus. One leading theory is that they didn't vanish at all, but simply evolved. The Adena culture is widely seen as the precursor to the Hopewell tradition, a later culture whose achievements are sometimes considered the zenith of Adena practices. The Hopewell are known for even more elaborate earthworks and far-flung trade networks. It's possible that Adena society gradually transformed through internal innovation and external contact into what we now call the Hopewell culture, leaving their old ways behind. Another possibility is environmental pressure. As accomplished gardeners, they may have faced challenges from climate shifts or soil exhaustion. A period of drought or a change in the migration patterns of the game they hunted could have forced them to disperse or move to more favorable lands, breaking apart the social cohesion necessary for their large-scale construction projects. There is also the possibility of conflict. While evidence of widespread warfare is scant, some skeletal remains show signs of violence. Perhaps pressure from neighboring groups, whether other indigenous cultures or new migrants into the region, led to a period of instability that made their sedentary, mound-building lifestyle impossible to maintain. The most poignant theory is a spiritual or social one. Perhaps the very ceremonies that required the building of mounds changed. The religious beliefs that unified them and demanded such colossal efforts may have transformed, making the old ways obsolete. The mounds, then, were not abandoned out of fear or failure, but because the people's worldview had shifted and they simply moved on. Whatever the reason, their departure left a silent legacy. The Adena people's mysterious exodus from Kentucky centuries before European contact forces us to reconsider the dynamic nature of ancient America. It was not a static world, but an ever-changing tapestry of cultures rising, evolving, and fading away. Their mounds remain, eternal questions etched into the Kentucky soil, asking us what happened to the mighty people who built them, and why they chose to leave their sacred hills behind. From the grand, human-made mounds of the Adena, we turn to a mystery written on a much smaller, yet equally fascinating scale. This enigma isn't carved from stone or piled high with earth, but painted silently onto the landscape over centuries by the slow, relentless hand of nature itself. These are the Bluegrass lichen figures, mysterious, giant anthropomorphic shapes created from lichen on limestone cliffs, and their origins blur the line between natural accident and ancient design. To understand this mystery, you first have to understand the artist, or rather the medium. Lichen is not a single organism, but a symbiotic partnership, a slow-growing, niche-constructing organism that forms a thallus, or body, from a mutualist relationship between fungi, algae, and bacteria. The fungus provides the structure and protection, while the algae or bacteria photosynthesize food. They are incredible survivors, growing on rocks, trees, and bare earth in a vast array of colors and forms, from crusty patches to leafy flakes and shrubby branches. They grow with a glacial slowness, often taking decades or even centuries to form large, visible colonies. In the scientific breakdown, lichenized fungi synthesize and secrete abundant secondary products that often crystallize, and hydrophobin proteins that self-assemble into films across surfaces. In simpler terms, they slowly paint the rocks. In the secluded limestone cliffs of Kentucky's Bluegrass region, this natural process has produced something extraordinary. On certain rock faces, the growth of various lichen species has formed distinct, large-scale patterns. From a distance, these patterns resolve into startlingly clear, giant anthropomorphic shapes, figures that look like human forms, often with outstretched arms, distinct heads, and sturdy legs. They appear as lighter or darker patches on the stone canvas, depending on the species of lichen, creating a natural chiaroscuro effect that highlights the figure against the bare rock. The central question is this: are these figures a complete accident of nature, a perfect confluence of moisture, sunlight, and mineral leaching that guided the lichen to grow in these specific, recognizable patterns? Or are they the product of ancient human intervention, a form of bioartistry where people deliberately manipulated the cliff faces to encourage the lichen to grow in these sacred forms over centuries? Those who argue for the natural formation theory point to the incredible power of random chance. Limestone is a reactive rock. Variations in its surface texture, porosity, and mineral content can create ideal microclimates for specific lichens to thrive. Water seeping down a cliff face deposits minerals and creates damp channels that could easily guide lichen growth in vertical, human-like lines. The human brain is hardwired to see patterns, especially faces and figures in random stimuli, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. We see the man in the moon, faces in the clouds, and perhaps giant men on Kentucky cliffs. According to this view, the figures are a beautiful, incredible coincidence, a natural masterpiece. However, the sheer scale and specificity of some of these figures have led to more speculative theories. Could the ancient inhabitants of Kentucky, perhaps the Adena themselves, have created these figures? The concept is not as far-fetched as it might seem. Many ancient cultures practiced a form of landscape architecture, shaping the natural world to reflect their spiritual beliefs. The Adena certainly had the motivation. Their entire culture was centered on earthworks and ceremonial sites connected to the spiritual world. The method of creation could have been surprisingly simple. If someone, centuries ago, carefully cleared away specific patches of existing lichen from the limestone in the shape of a desired figure, they would have created a template. Over the following decades, new lichen would naturally colonize the bare rock, but due to the subtle changes in the rock's surface chemistry and texture caused by the initial cleaning, the new growth could have been guided to fill in the outline in a specific way. It would be a project started with the full knowledge that it would not be completed in one's own lifetime, a sacred act of patience and long-term thinking, a message to the future. Another possibility is that they applied substances to the rock, natural oils, clay slips, or even crushed minerals from their extensive trade networks to either attract or repel certain types of lichen growth. They wouldn't need to be master carvers. They would just need to be master ecologists, understanding the slow, silent language of growth and decay on stone. If they are man-made, what was their purpose? Were they territorial markers, giant sentinels watching over sacred valleys? Were they representations of gods or ancestors, intended to be seen only from a distance, their full form revealed only to those who knew where to look? Or were they part of a larger celestial map, aligned with stars or solstice events, much like the Adena mounds themselves might have been? Unfortunately, dating lichen growth is incredibly difficult, and the fragile nature of these formations means they have rarely, if ever, been subjected to rigorous archaeological testing. They exist in a limbo between natural history and archaeology. They are not taken seriously by mainstream science because they can be explained by natural processes, yet they captivate the imagination because of their eerie precision. The Bluegrass lichen figures remain one of Kentucky's most subtle and debated mysteries. They force us to question what constitutes art and what constitutes nature. They challenge our perception of time, requiring us to think in centuries, not years. Were these cliffs a canvas for a forgotten ancient artist? Or are we simply seeing what we want to see, projecting our own need for meaning onto the random, beautiful patterns of the natural world? The figures themselves offer no answer, standing in silent, stony judgment, leaving us to wonder if we are looking at a masterpiece of nature or a message from the past that we have simply forgotten how to read. But not all ancient mysteries are vast in scale. Some are contained within a single, intricate image, a complex puzzle carved into stone that seems to hold secrets we can only begin to glimpse. In the heart of Kentucky, one such puzzle awaits, a petroglyph so precise and so baffling that it appears to be less a piece of art and more a sophisticated celestial map, charting the heavens with an accuracy that seems to defy its ancient origins. This is the Ashland Petroglyph, a single large sandstone panel covered in a dense, organized array of symbols. Unlike the scattered figures of the Red Bird River site, this carving feels intentional, a concentrated burst of information. It's a tapestry of dots, circles, lines, and strange, cup-like depressions, all arranged in patterns that immediately suggest something more than a simple drawing. To the modern eye, it looks almost schematic, like a diagram or a primitive circuit board. But many researchers believe its true subject is far grander, the night sky itself. The theory that this petroglyph is a celestial map is compelling. Some researchers have pointed out that specific clusters of dots and circles seem to correspond with the patterns of major constellations. Could that swirling group of pits represent the Big Dipper? Could that line of dots chart the path of a wandering planet? The arrangement is too orderly to be random, suggesting a deep understanding of astronomical patterns. This wouldn't be without precedent. Across the globe, from the deserts of the American Southwest to the caves of India, ancient peoples were meticulous astronomers. They used rock art to record celestial events. Petroglyphs elsewhere have been identified as records of supernovas, comets, and most commonly, solar eclipses. For an ancient culture, tracking these events was a matter of survival and spirituality. Knowing when the seasons would change was crucial for planting and harvest. And witnessing the sun suddenly vanish in the middle of the day was an event of profound spiritual significance, often seen as an omen or a message from the gods. Perhaps the Ashland petroglyph served as a calendar, a way to mark the solstices and equinoxes. The precise alignment of certain grooves and lines with the sun's position at specific times of the year could have turned this rock face into a sophisticated timekeeping device. This would have given its creators immense power and prestige, the ability to predict the turning of the seasons and to orchestrate rituals at the exact moment of celestial power. But here is where the mystery deepens. If it is a map of the stars, it's a map without a key. We simply don't know which symbols correspond to which celestial bodies. This leads to other, more speculative theories. Could the petroglyph be a record of a specific, catastrophic event? Some researchers have suggested that the dense, chaotic clusters of pits could represent a meteor shower or even the explosion of a supernova, a new star appearing in the heavens with terrifying brilliance. Such an event would have been world-shattering to an ancient people, something worthy of being immortalized in stone. Another possibility is that the petroglyph is not just a map, but a story, a creation myth or a spiritual narrative written in the language of the cosmos. The lines connecting the dots might not chart planetary movements, but instead represent the journeys of ancestral spirits or deities across the sky. In many Native American traditions, the constellations are not just random patterns, they are stories. The stars are ancestors, animals, and heroes from a sacred time. The Ashland petroglyph could be a rendition of one of these stories, a theological text carved into rock. Then there is the most intriguing question of all: who was meant to read it? The petroglyph's complexity suggests it was created for someone, or for a specific purpose. Was it a teaching tool for a shaman or an astronomer priest to instruct the next generation? Was it a sacred altar, where rituals were performed that aligned earthly power with celestial forces? Or was it a warning or a message left behind for the future? The rock itself offers no answers. The culture that created it vanished long ago, taking the meaning of their celestial code with them. We are left with a breathtaking piece of work that feels like it should make sense, that seems to be on the very tip of being understood, yet remains just out of reach. The Ashland petroglyph is a locked door to the ancient Kentucky sky. We can see the outline of the keyhole, but we have yet to find the key, leaving us to wonder what incredible astronomical knowledge a forgotten people once possessed, and why they worked so hard to preserve it in stone. From a single, enigmatic stone, we now turn to an entire landscape frozen in time. This mystery isn't about what was carved, but about what was left behind. It's the story of a village that seems to have been sealed shut and abandoned in a single moment, a community that simply walked away from their homes, leaving everything exactly as it was, as if they intended to return any minute, but never did. This is the mystery of the unfinished Fort Ancient village. The Fort Ancient culture flourished in the Ohio River Valley, including parts of Kentucky, from around 1000 to 1750 AD. They were a sophisticated people, known for building large, circular villages with central plazas, surrounded by defensive walls. They were farmers, potters, and traders, deeply connected to the rhythms of the earth and the heavens. But at one particular site, the story of this culture ends not with a slow decline, but with a sudden and seemingly ritual full stop. Archaeological excavations at this village revealed something extraordinary. Unlike typical sites where tools are broken and scattered, and posts have rotted away, this village was preserved in a state of suspended animation. It's as if time stopped. Cooking pots were found resting near hearths, as if a meal had been interrupted. Tools were laid neatly beside half-completed projects. Personal ornaments and other valuables were left behind, not hastily discarded as if in flight, but placed carefully where they belonged. This is the first clue that this was no ordinary abandonment. In cases of invasion or sudden disaster, we find evidence of panic, valuables snatched, structures burned. But here, there is no evidence of violence, no signs of attack or disease. Instead, the evidence points to a deliberate, orderly, and complete evacuation. But the most haunting discovery was the state of the village's defenses and sacred structures. The site shows evidence of being deliberately and ritually sealed. Entryways to important structures appear to have been closed off. Certain ritual objects were placed in specific, meaningful patterns before the people left. This doesn't suggest a people fleeing for their lives. It suggests a people performing a final, sacred ceremony. They were closing the book on their home, perhaps to preserve its spiritual integrity, or to ensure that whatever power resided within would remain contained. So why would an entire village decide, collectively, to leave everything behind and never return? What could prompt such a final, ceremonial act? One theory points to a severe and sudden environmental crisis. A prolonged drought could have made farming impossible. Or perhaps a swift-acting blight wiped out their crops, giving them no time to adapt. Facing certain starvation, the people may have made the difficult decision to disperse and join other communities. The ritual sealing of the village could have been a way to appease the spirits they believed had abandoned them, a final offering in hopes of finding mercy elsewhere. Another possibility is a profound spiritual or prophetic catalyst. The Fort Ancient People, like their Mississippian neighbors, were deeply astronomical. Their worldviews were shaped by the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. What if a celestial event, like a solar eclipse or the appearance of a brilliant comet, was interpreted not as a curiosity, but as an undeniable omen? If a shaman or leader interpreted such an event as a direct command from the gods to abandon the village, the people would have had little choice but to obey. The abandonment would then be an act of faith, a journey to a promised new home dictated by the heavens themselves. There is also the chilling possibility of a cultural taboo. Perhaps a tragic event occurred within the village, a death of a beloved leader, a terrible crime that broke a sacred law. The event might have been so catastrophic that it was believed to have contaminated the very ground the village stood on, rendering it spiritually unclean and unfit for human habitation. The only solution would be to perform closing rituals and exile themselves from their own homes. The unfinished Fort Ancient Village stands as a poignant and silent testament to a moment of profound decision. It offers an incredibly rare snapshot of daily life abruptly ceased, but it withholds the reason why. The people took their motivation with them, leaving behind their possessions, their homes, and their history. We are left with a scene that is both intimate and utterly alien, a place that feels both familiar and deeply mysterious. It challenges our idea of what it means to abandon a home, suggesting that for these ancient people, leaving wasn't an act of defeat, but a final, solemn ritual, the last chapter in a story whose beginning we are only now starting to read. But not all ancient mysteries are found beneath the open sky. Some are hidden deep within the earth, in places so dark and secluded that they were never meant to be seen by the light of day. These were sacred spaces, portals to another world, and in the labyrinthine cave systems of the American Southeast, one such chamber holds secrets so profound that they have been meticulously guarded for over 1,000 years. This is the mystery of the Glyph Cave. Discovered in the late 1970s by a forest ranger in Tennessee, the cave's exact location remains a closely guarded secret to protect its precious contents from vandalism and destruction. What lies inside is not a treasure of gold or jewels, but something far more valuable, a fragile, breathtaking gallery of ancient art and ritual, etched into the very walls of the cave itself. To enter the Glyph Cave is to step into a different world. The main passage is a long tunnel where the ceiling and floor gradually draw closer together, forcing visitors to stoop, then crouch, and finally crawl into the absolute darkness of the cave's dark zone. Here, natural light cannot reach. The only illumination would have come from the flickering, smoky light of river cane torches, casting dancing shadows on walls that have not seen the sun for millennia. The air is cool and damp, and this constant humidity is the very reason this incredible art has survived. The images are not painted on the rock, but carefully incised into a thick, plastic-like layer of wet clay that coats the cave walls and ceiling. If this clay were to dry out, the entire gallery would simply crumble to dust and blow away on the slightest air current. And what a gallery it is! The walls are covered in hundreds, perhaps thousands, of intricate carvings known as glyphs. There are swirling, abstract lines that seem to pulse with energy. There are recognizable figures, serpents, birds, insects, bears, and humanoid forms. But these are not simple doodles. The marks go far beyond drawing. Archaeologists have found evidence of kicking, cutting, hitting, raking, incising, and smoothing the clay surface. This suggests the act of creation was itself a physical, perhaps even violent, ritual. Some images appear to have been struck with a club, as if the artist was symbolically attacking the creature they had just drawn. Radiocarbon dating of discarded torch fragments reveals this sacred art was created in the Mississippian era, around 1300 AD, though the cave's use likely spans a much longer period. This was a time when Native American societies in the region were becoming more complex, building large earthen mounds and establishing vast trade networks. The cave served as a profound counterpoint to those sunlit, community-oriented mounds. If the mounds reached for the upper world of spirits and ancestors, this cave was a pathway to the underworld. But what was the purpose of this hidden chamber? Why venture into such a terrifying, cramped environment to create such elaborate art that could barely be seen even with torchlight? The leading theory is that this was a place of powerful ritual and initiation. The difficulty of access itself may have been part of the test. A seeker or shaman in training would have had to navigate the physical and psychological terror of the deep cave to undergo a transformative experience. The glyphs they created might represent visions encountered in a trance state, spirit guides, or deities of the underworld. The act of striking a glyph could have been a way to symbolically defeat a fear or an evil spirit. The cave's contents support this. Unlike a dwelling site, archaeologists found no evidence of daily life, no pottery, no tools for cooking, no signs of permanent habitation. Instead, they found hearths and the remains of the torches that provided light for the rituals. The cave was not a home, it was a temple, a sealed, hidden temple where individuals could commune with the most powerful and dangerous forces of the spiritual realm. The true meaning of the individual glyphs, however, is lost to time. The serpent might represent a powerful underworld spirit or a deity like the great horned serpent of later southeastern Native American myths. The humanoid figures, some adorned with intricate patterns that look like regalia, could represent powerful shamans, ancestors, or gods. We may never know the specific stories they tell. The Mud Glyph Cave is a time capsule, a sealed deposit of prehistoric spirituality that offers a rare and unmediated window into the mind of the ancient world. It forces us to reconsider the sophistication of these cultures. This wasn't primitive scratching. It was a deeply symbolic, complex ritual practice that required immense courage and spiritual belief. The cave remains, silent and dark, holding its secrets close, a testament to the human need to seek meaning in the deepest darkness and to leave a mark, however hidden, to say, "We were here and we believed." From the profound darkness of a ritual cave, we emerge into the open air of a remote mountain valley, where another type of mystery stands silent against the sky. This enigma is not hidden, but stands in plain sight, a perfect ring of ancient stones whose purpose has been washed away by centuries of wind and rain. This is the mystery of the Baker Stone Circle, and it challenges everything we think we know about the ancient inhabitants of North America. The Baker Circle is an astonishing structure. Unlike the chaotic piles of fieldstone that sometimes litter old farms, this formation is a near-perfect ring of large, upright stones. The stones are not haphazardly placed. They are carefully chosen and positioned, with a clear entrance and a layout that suggests a deep intention behind its construction. It feels like a place set apart, a location chosen for a reason far more important than mere practicality. But what reason? The most compelling clue to the circle's purpose comes from its alignment with the heavens. Like many ancient megalithic sites across the world, from Stonehenge in England to the recumbent stone circles of Scotland, the Baker Circle appears to be a sophisticated astronomical observatory. Researchers have found that key stones in the circle align perfectly with the rising and setting sun during the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year. On the summer solstice, the sun would have risen directly over a specific pointer stone, casting a long beam of light through the entrance and into the center of the circle. On the winter solstice, it would have set in perfect alignment with another. This was no accident. For an ancient agricultural society, tracking the sun's journey was a matter of survival. The solstices were critical markers in the yearly cycle, signaling when to plant, when to harvest, and when to prepare for the long, lean months of winter. A structure that could predict these events with precision would have been incredibly valuable. It would have given its builders power over time itself, and the person who understood its secrets, a shaman or a priest astronomer, would have held a position of immense importance. But was it just a calendar? The sheer effort involved in its construction suggests its purpose was far greater. Moving multi-ton stones without the wheel or draft animals would have required a huge, coordinated communal effort. This suggests a level of social organization that we don't typically attribute to the prehistoric peoples of this region. Why would a scattered, nomadic society invest so much energy in a single structure, unless it was of the utmost spiritual and cultural importance? This leads to the theory that the Baker Circle was, first and foremost, a ceremonial temple. It may have been the spiritual heart of a vast territory, a place where different groups would gather at specific times of the year for great rituals, feasts, and marriages. The astronomical alignments would have added dramatic effect to these ceremonies. Imagine the power of a sunrise on the solstice, perfectly framed by ancient stones, illuminating a central altar or a waiting shaman. It would have been a visible manifestation of the cosmic order, a moment where the heavens and the earth were in perfect sync. There are also more enigmatic possibilities. Some researchers have pointed to the folklore of other stone circles, like the Rollright stones in England or Stanton Drew in Somerset, where legends say the stones are actually petrified people, turned to stone for dancing on a Sabbath day. While these are clearly later inventions, they often contain a kernel of ancient memory. Could these stories be a distorted echo of the circle's original purpose as a sacred dancing ground for rituals? The circular layout is, after all, perfect for communal dance and ceremony. Another persistent piece of folklore surrounding stone circles across the world is the idea that their stones are countless, that no two people can ever arrive at the same number, or that anyone who tries will be struck by bad luck or even death. This might seem like a silly superstition, but it speaks to the awe and mystery these sites inspired. They were so outside the realm of everyday experience that they were considered magical, their very nature defying human logic and comprehension. The true purpose of the Baker Stone Circle likely lies in a combination of all these ideas. It was an astronomical tool, a communal calendar, a religious temple, and a social gathering place all rolled into one. It was a symbol of unity, a place that connected the people to their land, their seasons, their gods, and to each other. Today, the Baker Circle stands silent. The songs, the dances, the prayers, and the people who understood its precise meaning are long gone, but the stones remain, waiting for the sun to return to its appointed slots in the horizon each year. They are a permanent reminder that the ancient world was not a primitive place, but a world rich with ceremony, intelligence, and a profound connection to the cosmos. The circle's true purpose may be forgotten, but its power to inspire wonder and questions across the centuries remains undimmed.